On this episode of Arts Weekly, I'll be speaking with Laurel Campbell from the IPFW Department of Fine Arts.
My job is to bring them from college art student to the professional educator.
And Erin Mitchell from the IPFW Department of Music.
I said, no, I'm not really interested in choir. She said, well, come play for us, come perform for us. So I went and performed for the choir on the piano.
This is Arts Weekly.
Arts Weekly is a production of the College of Visual and Performing Arts at IPFW, offering degrees in fine arts, music, theater, and visual communication and design. IPFW, the energy of arts.
Hello, I'm Chuck O'Connor, and this is Arts Weekly. Joining me is Laurel Campbell, Director of Art Education at IPFW. Dr. Campbell received 3 degrees from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, a BFA in Art, an MA in Education, and an EDD in Education. She taught at the University of Illinois for 8 years before coming to IPFW. Good to have you here at IPFW, Dr. Campbell. Good to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.
As Director of Art Education at IPFW, what sort of things do you teach?
Okay, I teach 2 methods courses. One that's a beginning methods and focuses mostly on elementary art education practice, and the other is focused on secondary education.
That would be junior high school and high school?
6 through 12. So our students are licensed in art education as well as in music for a K-12 license. So they graduate from our program ready and able to teach any grade level.
I see.
So.
And they also take art classes, I would assume.
Yes, yes.
As well as learning how to teach, which is distinct, 2 distinct skills.
Right. However, they're very intertwined because I see an art teacher as first being an artist. They really arrive at the idea of teaching long after they've decided to become an artist. And so they see that as something that they add on to a very rigorous study of art in a variety of media. And art education students need to be well versed in many media in order to teach, not only to the various age levels, but in various contexts. Some high schools have huge departments that focus on individual media.
Right. I mean, I would imagine if a student comes out of here with a degree in art education, they might be asked to teach anything from ceramics to painting to sculpture, or perhaps things that are not even art-related sometimes, perhaps.
Right.
But you know, clearly there's a distinction. Not everybody who's a great artist would necessarily be a great teacher, and vice versa. What are some of the challenges that you find in training people how to teach art to young people?
Well, the challenges are really very few. I find that when students are motivated to become a teacher, they're typically modeling behaviors that they remember as a child. They had a favorite teacher, and sometimes it's an art teacher, so they decide to become that art teacher that they loved. I think the challenge really is in getting them to see themselves as a professional. And so my job is to bring them from college art student to the professional educator that they need to become. And that happens in the course of about 2 years' time. So we have the methods courses, they have College of Ed courses to take, and then their student teaching practicum.
It's quite rigorous.
It is, very much so.
You know, oftentimes you hear parents talk, you know, their student comes home and says, you know, I want to major in art. It has a bit of a scary connotation.
It does.
But it doesn't have to. And did your parents encourage you to take art and when you were starting out? How did that work?
Yeah, I can remember making art very, very young and going to museums. I was blessed to have parents who encouraged me to play music, took me to museums, and I think I developed a love for the arts. And when I decided to major in it, they were very supportive. Now, having the art ed degree, however, makes it a more practical degree in some ways, although many fine arts majors go on into college teaching or by getting an MFA, or they find ways to use their degrees in many, many areas, in design work, variety of places. So,
And what makes this program unique here at IPFW, you think?
I think the best quality I've discovered so far is its sense of community. I feel really able to have a hands-on experience with my students. I'm their advisor and I'm also their professor, and then I also do their student teaching supervision later toward the end of their degree. So I have this feeling that that continuity is going to be very helpful for students at IPFW, and I think I can help them grow into the professionals that they want to become. So,
well, since No Child Left Behind, came into being, I think one of the unintentional effects, perhaps, of that legislation was that as schools strived to come up to standards in things like science and math, education, technology, they found maybe less room in their curriculum for the arts. And I think compiling that right now are the budget cuts across, where it seems like arts programs are getting cut across the state, not only in this state but across the country, quite severely. Why are the arts important for childhood development?
They're extremely important. I think that some educators making those decisions may be really harming the children ultimately if they remove the arts in general, that including music and theater and dance. Those are all important to the development of what I call becoming a consumer of art, and learning how art plays such an important part of our lives, in our lives. So I think that students learn critical thinking skills, they learn problem-solving skills. They use their brain in ways that, in the art classes, in ways that they don't in other disciplines. And so it provides that more holistic education, that experience for them. And it just needs to be rounded out with the arts, in my opinion. I think students also will complain loudly if they don't get to have the arts in their schools. I think it'll turn around and come back to educators making decisions, realizing that's a big mistake.
You have a new book coming out. You've edited a new book coming out called The Hearts of Art Education, Holistic Approaches to Creativity, Integration, and Transformation. Tell us a little bit about your research and your work in that area.
Well, what I discovered is that the progressive movement, going back to John Dewey, had some great ideas about looking at children's experiences in education as being based on inquiry and on experience. And so my colleague and I, Seymour Simmons, co-editor of the book, decided that it was time to compile a lot of scholarly research papers on this topic. And so some of our authors discuss a holistic approach to teaching creativity, or it could be a combination of all three of those aspects. But what it is looking at the child as a whole human being that comes to the classroom with social, cultural, spiritual, physical, emotional, all of these aspects or dimensions of each person come with that child. They don't check those things at the door and learn by rote, but they actually learn using all of those dimensions of their experience, of their consciousness. So what this book does is really go into some uncharted territory, recalling the progressive movement of the 1914 to 1920 era, and then reconfiguring that for 21st century life
Well, you know,
contemporary life.
you say that the children bring their own creativity coming in the door, but many would argue that they need to take their creativity going out the door
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
And it seems to me that as we hear more and more from employers that creative thinking, various internal motivation factors are very, very important in the workplace.
Yes.
Just learning the rules about how things were done before are probably not going to allow one to imagine how things might be in the future. In fact, Einstein is famous for saying that imagination is actually more important than knowledge.
Right.
And I think that we are really doing our children a disservice by not allowing them to use their imaginations for their own good in the future.
Right. I agree wholeheartedly that the way the future appears to be going, I mean, the way we appear to be going, and what's ahead is that we're moving so quickly with technology, with innovative thinking. We have to have that skill in these young children. We have to nurture it somehow, and I think the arts are the way to do that, and then that should transfer itself across to everything they do, every discipline they're involved in. But I think what they have to do is think of the creative ways, imaginative ways to solve our problems. So they're going to be faced with environmental issues and all sorts of things that the modern world now faces, and we need creative people to figure out the solutions to
I
those
agree. I
problems.
think that teaching arts is important because teaching creativity and the ability to think creatively and use one's imagination is
Right.
important. Whether you go on to be an engineer, a worker, a real estate agent, a
Right.
salesperson, you name it, you have to think outside the box, because I
Yes.
think that's how America is going to lead the world in the
Right.
future.
That's actually how we all started too. I think our country was founded with this entrepreneurial spirit, this sort of go out to the West and start a new life, and all sorts of things like that are in our history. I think it's in the fabric of who we are as Americans, and I think it does mean that our teaching should be slightly different now, even more so with all the ways that we interact with the world technologically and so forth. So teaching now does require more effort at learning critical thinking skills and problem solving.
Well, this is all good food for thought, and just on behalf of IPFW, it's delightful having you with us,
thank you.
Dr. Campbell.
It's
Wish
my
you the
pleasure.
best of luck with the art education program.
Thank you very
Thanks for
much.
coming on the show.
Okay.
For more information about the IPFW Department of Fine Art, you can visit ipfw.edu/fine arts. Arts Weekly will return in a moment.